I'm going to go on and hit that start recording now. And we'll go on and get started. I know it's a busy time of year for everybody, and I want to be aware of that and try and get you out a little bit early today. There's a lot of information that we're going to cover today. We'll be talking through the new Lead Coordinator Training PowerPoint that you should have received by email this morning. If we have time at the end, we'll also just take a quick look at where the LEAD elements come from out of Infinite Campus. You should have also received by email this morning a sample LEAD report. That's going to be something that we're going to take a look at as we go through the PowerPoint, so you may want to have that either up on your computer or printed out to look at. So with that said, we're going to go on and get started. Today's training is going to talk about a variety of things. We're going to talk about what LEAD is, why we do the LEAD report 2 times a year. We'll look briefly at a little bit of LEAD terminology that will kind of flow into what's going to be in your LEAD manual. The LEAD manual has not yet been published. I've put the finishing touches on it today, and we'll be sending that over to our webmaster this afternoon for her to post it. So hopefully that will be up by the end of this week. We'll take a look at the EPSB LEAD web application and familiarize you with what things look like on our website, where you go to do certain tasks for LEAD. We'll do an overview of the LEAD steps and the timeline. And then we're going to spend quite a bit of time looking at how to read the LEAD reports and how to interpret those so that then you can use the reports to resolve LEAD-related issues. LEAD is an acronym that stands for Local Educator Assignment Data. It is authorized by both statute and regulation. The statute mandates that we here at EPSB submit what is called out-of-field data to KDE no later than November 15th of each year. The regulation fleshes that out a little bit and also mandates the spring reporting period. And the spring reporting period is not only used to kind of check new hires for the springtime, but it is also what we use for highly qualified reporting that your principals do starting in March. So it kind of all flows together. The purposes behind LEAD are to ensure that there is a properly certified educator in every position. Notice I didn't just say teacher, because we do not only use Infinite Campus data to check our course information, but we use Munis data to check administrator positions and other non-teaching positions to ensure that individuals have the appropriate certification. We look at all of the courses that come out of Infinite Campus for each school and compare the staff and course information to the teacher certification database here at EPSB. We also do the same with the Munis job class data. Once your finance officers submit that up to KDE, KDE then will send the information that we need over to us, and we put that against the teacher certification database as well. Ramifications and consequences of things that can happen for assignments that are not in compliance. The commissioner always has the option to take SEEK funding for positions that are out of compliance. So if you've got somebody teaching that's not certified for a position, they can take SEEK funding. I'll be honest with you folks, I've not seen that happen since my very, very first year here back in 2005. So that's not usually the consequence. One of the other things, though, that can happen is that there can be legal action taken against administrator and or teacher certificates. And unfortunately, this is something that we've seen a little bit of a ramp up in as budgets have constricted. And there are unemployed teachers out there looking for jobs and wondering why somebody got a job that they didn't get. If something was done inappropriately, our board can take action against the certificate holder, either the teacher that took a position for which they're not certified or an administrator that placed them in that position. Most often that action is a training component. Occasionally it will be an admonishment. And for obviously more serious things, it could be a suspension of their certificate. So it's important to make sure that this data is as accurate as possible. We not only use LEAD data to check certification information, but we also, as I said earlier, use it for highly qualified teacher reporting. There are other state and federal reports that pull information out of the LEAD data. It's used for research by people here at the Standards Board, by people over at KDE, and by the Legislative Research Commission. You know, if the legislature says, you know, we're thinking about doing a special thing for incentivizing math teachers, and we need to know how many math teachers there are, we go back to the LEAD data and say, okay, this many people were teaching math during the last school year. The next one, open records request, as I said, you know, people are out of job and people are asking questions these days. And so they'll go to LEAD data to see who is teaching a specific course, what certifications that individual has, how they've been listed, if they've been listed appropriately. And now that we are into the full statewide pilot of the Professional Growth and Evaluation System, the same course data that we're using in LEAD is used for that system. So that's what, as I said, data quality is so incredibly important with this, because it's not just checking certification. You don't want to just put something in to make it clear LEAD, which is a phrase I hear all the time. You want to make sure that it's as accurate as possible, because it goes a whole lot of other places. Some terminology that you will hear frequently as you work on the LEAD report. This terminology is going to be in the glossary that's in your LEAD manual, so if you ever need to refer to that, please feel free to do so. The extract file, this is the process that you use in Infinite Campus to actually create the file that you will then upload to our website. Our system does not talk directly to Infinite Campus. You have to pull a file from Infinite Campus and upload it to our system. The preliminary audit report is your primary tool for working through your LEAD data. This is going to show you your kick-out information, and we're going to spend quite a bit of time looking at how to read this in a little bit. This report is what you want to look at every time you upload a LEAD file. When I say you need to run your report, that just means generate that PDF of the preliminary audit report. There will be times that you will need to do that without uploading again. You can always do that at any time, just to check and see if something's cleared, if we've processed a certificate here, anything like that. A staff warning is an important component of the LEAD error report. And these are comments appearing in red that either say no courses for staff member or Social Security number not found in EPSB database. These are warnings that need to be corrected early on. When I tell you it is time to submit or finalize your LEAD report, that means you're ready to be done with it and you can finalize it and finish it by using the sign-off feature. Once you have submitted it, you have no access to go back in and make any further edits. Upload is the process for taking the file that you've created out of Infinite Campus and putting it into our system. A few tips and tricks for LEAD coordinators as you're new to this process. The first thing I want you to know is that LEAD really should be a team effort. As a coordinator, you should coordinate that team. But LEAD is not something really that just one person can do anymore, because there's so many different things involved with LEAD. You know, there's hiring decisions, there's curriculum decisions as far as what state course codes are used. Special ed coordinators need to be involved. Guidance counselors, as they're doing scheduling, need to be aware of LEAD issues. Finance officers, as they're placing individuals in Munis job classes, need to be involved. So make sure that you provide training to those folks in your staff as needed. The LEAD manual and this PowerPoint and all of the training materials will be on our website, so you can pull those down for anyone that needs either all or a part of it. One of the tips I want to put in here when you're training folks, make sure that your staff know to use the staff locator in Infinite Campus when adding new staff members. This is important for us to help with continuity as far as making sure we don't have duplicate people across the state. It's similar to the student locator that you all use when looking up students to get their student identified number. But if you look up staff members by social, you can find and pull their information without having to create a whole new record. I highly recommend that you create a consistent method for communicating information between the schools and the districts during lead reporting. I do not recommend that you just hand your schools a report and say, here you go, fix it, and I'll rerun it in a day. Make sure that they know what they're looking at. If they're the ones that are doing the cleanup, which is fine, make sure you've trained them on what to do and share this lead training information with them. We strongly recommend that you upload early and as frequently as you need to. The lead reporting window will open on September 3rd, and so you'll have almost a 2-month time frame in which to process your report. This is something that is not a one-and-done report. That's why usually you'll hear me call it the lead process instead of just the lead report. But if you get started early, it will allow you to find any really major certification issues. So if staffing changes need to happen, it will allow you to have kind of a little bit of breathing room as you prepare your report. And then something to be aware of, that paperwork processes here at the EPSB will drop off your report automatically. So you may run a report in the morning and Susie Evans is kicking out because her certificate has not been renewed yet. That afternoon you run it again, Susie's no longer on your report because our consultants have processed her renewal application. So that will drop off automatically. You can upload as frequently as you need to. We will have individuals that will upload more than 100 times over the 2-month time span, and that's fine. That's the really nice thing about having a web-based application for your student information system, because you can pull that out as often as you need to and then upload it to our site. When you upload to our site, you'll be able to pull a report with your errors, and we will be able to see that same report. So if you call and say, hey, I don't understand why this is an error, or can you help me troubleshoot this, I'll be able to look at the exact same report that you see. So it's not uploading and finishing your report when you upload. So don't worry that it's really messy, because early on, they're usually pretty messy, and that's okay. But we don't consider your report officially submitted until you go to that sign off and submit button. Do not wait to hear from us, though, when you upload. Every year I get 1 or 2 people that will email me and say, hey, I uploaded a file the other day. How's it look? And my response is usually, I don't know. How's it look? Because we don't look at every report every time they come in. Because, as I said, people will upload well over 100 times, and we're getting that from 174 districts, or 173 this year. So we don't check every report. We keep an eye on the statistics, kind of help troubleshoot as we can, but we don't email you and say, okay, here are your errors that you need to clean up during the uploading phase. The preliminary audit report will show you your errors and will allow you to troubleshoot. A few things related to LEAD that you just as a new coordinator need to be aware of. Integrated Science 2, 3, and 4 at the high school level, we do require a syllabus review for those, because the individual has to be at least 50% within their certification area. If your high schools are offering this, please let me know and I can send you the approval form. KESE is a tool that you will need to become very familiar with. It's Kentucky Educator Certification Inquiry. And this is a place where you as the lead coordinator, your HR folks, and your principals can go to see what certificate someone holds, to see their certificate permissions so you can tell exactly what they're able to teach. And if somebody's got an application in process, you can see where they are in the process, what paperwork's been received, what paperwork is still needed, if it's even been processed yet or if it's just gotten here. So you can check all of that in KESE, which is an application in our website. Once you have access as a lead coordinator, you'll have access to that. Munis, as I said already, we do use Munis to check job class information. If there is a correction that needs to happen for Munis, your finance officer will need to make that correction. It's not something that you as the lead coordinator can usually do. They will need to contact KDE so that they can resubmit their PSD and or CSD files. Right, now we're going to take a look at the online EPSB LEAD web application. To get to the LEAD web application, you can get in it one of two ways. There is a direct link, and that's this one right here. Most people will not use that. Most people will just go through our normal login page, which is accessible from our home page, and then go to LEAD under your online services menu. If you have ever had a user ID and password in our system, that user ID and password will stay the same. We'll just need to make sure that we have you set up with LEAD rights, and contact me if you have any problems with your login. This is what the landing page looks like when you get to LEAD. It's just a basic intro page with a little bit of information. Primarily, you're going to navigate using the buttons at the top, so we'll take a look at those. The first one is a KeySee button, so this is a direct link straight in the LEAD application over to KeySee, so you can check certificate types, application status, and permissions. The intro takes you back to that main LEAD page, not something that you'll use most of the time. Upload files, this is where you will go once you've created the file out of Infinite Campus when you're ready to upload it into our system. Edit LEAD data, we do have an online LEAD editor where you can make changes. However, most of the changes need to happen in Infinite Campus. This is a place where you can go to make final little tweaks or any last-minute changes that need to happen right before you sign off. The reports page is where you're going to go immediately after an upload every time. We have a preliminary audit report, a full data report for both district and schools, and then there's also a tool on this page where you can email reports out to your principals. Actually, it emails a link to the page so they can pull down their reports. But it's really handy for doing final reviews towards the end of the reporting period. And then finally, the Sign Off and Submit Final LEAD Data button. This is where you'll go to use your user ID and password to digitally sign off. Sign off is due no later than Friday, November 1st. So almost a full 2-month reporting period this year. Speaking of the reporting period timelines, here they are. As I said, we will activate the LEAD reporting system on Tuesday, September 3rd. The last few years we have activated this the day after Labor Day. It's been a good window. It lets everybody kind of get settled into the school year and then get started in September. November 1st is the sign-off, and then from November 1st to November 15th, we here at EPSB will do cleanup. We'll contact everybody at least once about their report if there's any outstanding issues, or just to say, hey, yes, it's cleared. And so that will happen between November 1st and 15th. And then in the spring reporting period is slightly shorter. We open January 15th and close February 28th. We do not email you with errors or with all clear comments after the spring report. I will occasionally email you if I see something that needs to be cleaned up before HQ reporting happens. And then HQ reporting, which is done by your principals, happens from March 1st to March 31st. Principals cannot access HQ reporting until your LEAD report is submitted. So if you miss that February 28th deadline and sign off late, your principals are delayed on starting HQ. The LEAD steps, this is what we're going to look at next. All of these are going to be in a document that's in your LEAD manual. It's going to be the very last 2 pages of that LEAD manual. And it's a document that I highly recommend that you have at your side during LEAD reporting at all time, because it's kind of a quick, down and dirty, quick steps sheet of how to generate the file, how to upload the file, and how to look for errors. So it's a really good quick reference to have at your side while you're doing the report. We're going to go through them in depth right now so you understand what they are and how to do them. An overview of the steps, there's 5 basic steps to the LEAD process: creating the file in Infinite Campus, uploading it to our website, opening and reviewing your preliminary audit report, correcting issues, and you'll notice I kind of put a break there because those 4 steps will happen over and over and over again. Anytime you make a correction in Infinite Campus, you do have to recreate the extract file and re-upload it to us. As I said earlier, our systems do not talk between each other, so you do have to upload that again. Once you've done that as many times as possible and have your data as clean as possible, you will submit the report. Now we'll go into the actual information about each step. The extract file is created in Infinite Campus. It's under KY State Reporting, the lead extract. And there are several selections that you need to make on this page. The first is the date range. For the fall reporting period, you're going to want to put the first day of school until your last day of school in December. Do not leave either of the date ranges blank, because that will default to a current day and it'll throw off some of your course information. In the spring reporting period, we do get the full year. So you're going to go from the first day of school to your last scheduled day of school. Now, I know in Kentucky in January, a lot of times we don't know what the last day of school is going to be yet. We know what we scheduled it, and so that's what you'll go with. Because those schedules aren't going to change. Your course schedules aren't going to change in the last 2 weeks if you have snow days or whatever. The reporting period, you're going to choose either fall or spring. The format for upload does have to be an XML file. That's the only type of file that our system will accept. You can use CSV or HTML format when looking at your data in Infinite Campus. However, it is very raw data, and some of it's encoded as far as, there's a 1 for a certain field or a 3 for a certain field. And so a lot of it won't make sense unless you know exactly what you're looking for. I know a lot of the other state reports, CSV or HTML, are really good ways to troubleshoot. It's really not with the LEAD report. And then the final selection that you have to make are the calendars. For your final LEAD upload, you do have to include all calendars in your final extract. But as you're working through the LEAD report in early September or whatever, you can do smaller batches. You can choose to do all of your elementaries or all of your middle schools or just one school at a time even. Please be aware that if you upload one school and then upload another school, it overwrites the first school. So that's why you have to select all schools in your final extract, because it doesn't put them together when it comes up, it overwrites them. When you click Generate the Extract, in most cases, especially early on, you will get an Extract Summary Error Report. This is not your LEAD report. These are just data errors that cause things to not get included into the LEAD file. You do want to review the errors, and we'll talk about what each of those errors are. But don't spend an overabundance of time on these at the first part of your LEAD reporting. Every year we've got at least a few folks that will spend so much time on this that they're missing some real certification problems, and this is not going to show you that. These are just things that are not going to get included in your LEAD file. So you do need them cleaned up, especially before we get to that final upload, but don't spend too much time on them before continuing on to uploading. Some of the errors that you will see on that extract summary report: the first one, following records do not have Social Security number, employee type, or both, and will not be included in the final report. To correct these, double check the demographics and identities tab, making sure the socials are there. Sometimes you do have to retype the social and resave it. Check the census list to make sure that there are not duplicate entries for the staff member. You may also need to check the district assignment tab to see if the individual has a SITS role that does not have an employee type. This one's a really easy one. The following staff have duplicate Social Security numbers. For the LEAD file, you can only have one person with that social. So you want to make sure that each staff member has a distinct Social Security number. Make sure that as people change their last names, that your staff are changing those on the Identities tab and not creating a new census record for that individual. Another warning, the following employee type 01 staff are not assigned to a course section. The employee type 01 are teacher, is the teacher employee type. All teachers must either have a course or should be assigned as an additional teacher. This includes gifted teachers, homebound teachers, special ed teachers, art, music, and PE teachers. All of those folks are teachers. Don't change it to support or other to make it clear this error, because those folks, if they are teachers, they must be listed as a teacher. Now, the one group that throws people a little bit are the curriculum coaches. Those folks are not teachers any longer. They should be listed as other professional. So that way they don't throw this error, because really they're not going to have courses when they're working with other teachers. The core ID and alt-CNUM are both blank. Again, as I said, LEAD file has some interesting encoding in it. The core ID is the core content drop-down that's on the section tab. And the alt-CNUM refers to the 6-digit state course code that's on the course tab. If you get this error, you must assign a state course number to a course. KDE's regulations now do require that all courses be linked to a valid state course code. So check the KDE website for those numbers. If the state course code is the 909999, which is called School Defined Course, then the school will need to put a core content indicator on the drop-down on the section tab. Otherwise, that drop-down should be left blank. The next two errors are relatively new to LEAD. We had a new staff history tab about 1.5 years ago, and so these errors are to help make sure that we have appropriate data on that staff history tab. The first one is that the most recent primary teacher for the listed sections has a staff history record end dated prior to the last day of the section. If the section is continuing all the way through the semester, there must be a primary teacher assigned all the way through the end of the semester. If the section has stopped, you don't have to end date the teacher. You can just end the section. But you want to ensure that the current teacher for the course is listed as the primary teacher, and it cannot be left blank if you're filling it with a substitute, which should not happen anyway. It should not be permanently filled with a sub ever. But you can't leave that primary teacher blank. The other warning related to the staff history tab is that sections have never had a primary teacher assigned. And again, every section must have a primary teacher. If it is an online course, the certified teacher that is serving as the facilitator should be listed as the primary teacher. Notice I said that those do have to be certified individuals for that type of course. So we've gone through the extract summary errors. We know what they are. We've made notes and figured out what we need to fix. So we're going to go on and click Select Here and sign on in, move on in. So click here to proceed. It will give you the option to save or open. Always choose Save. If you try to open it, you will get an error that says you don't have the correct rights to open the XML file. It will create a new file each time, so make sure when you do that, you've shifted the old files to another location so you do have that historical record. If you see an error that says Infinite Campus cannot download Prism, make sure you're using Mozilla Firefox instead of Internet Explorer. So save the file to your desktop or a LEAD folder, just so long as you know where you're saving it. Then you do have to go to that file and zip it manually. So just right-click on the file name, select Send To, and Compressed Folder. The LEAD file name will look like this. It's going to be LEAD _ your 3-digit district number _ and a 1 or a 2 for the reporting period. If during the spring you get a file that says 1, you cannot just rename the file, because there's an indicator inside the file that shows that it's the wrong term as well. So you will need to re-extract. And then finally, the last 2 digits are the school year. So you've saved the file, you've zipped the file. That's all of that first step. Now, all of the rest of the steps will happen on our website. So you'll log in and go to Upload Files. You'll see instructions on the Upload Files page as far as how to browse to get to it. So you'll browse, find the file, and click Upload. Our system will warn you if it is not the correct file name or the correct year. And if there are certain types of errors in the file, it will not process. Sometimes it will give you an error message. Sometimes it will just give you a big red stop sign. If you get that red stop sign or the error message, please email EPSB LEAD team at ky.gov. Let us know your district name, your name, and the time of your error. Most of the time, the file will get here if you get the stop sign. It just hasn't processed. And so we're able to pull it down, run it through a debug here, and see, okay, here's where you've got duplicate data, here's where you've got some missing pieces of data, so that you can then go back and fix those errors so the file will successfully upload. It will tell you on this screen if your upload is successful. So don't try to move on to the next steps if you get an error. Please email us and let us know. So it'll say successful upload. Click the reports page to go on to the next step. Step 3 is opening and reviewing your report. You always want to look at the preliminary audit report after every upload, because that's going to really show you where your issues are using the comments and let you know what you need to correct. After the first upload or so, we do recommend that you have the schools take a look at the staff list that's on the full data report so that they can look for teachers that are missing from the file. And I'll show you how to do that here in a little bit when we start looking at how to read the reports. This is what the reports page will look like. You'll notice that at the top you have the district information and a preliminary and full data report, along with information about the superintendent, the director of personnel, and the lead coordinator. Then you'll have a list of each of your schools and a preliminary and full data report for each of those, and the principal listed out to the side. This is where you can use it to email, and we'll look at that again here in a moment. You can open a report at any time without re-uploading. If you're trying to see if any changes have happened, though, you must open this one, the preliminary audit report for the district, because that's what causes things to recalculate in our system. When you open your report, the first thing you want to check is the file export date. This will make sure that you've got the most current file and the file that you intended to upload. After you open the report, take a look at the staff warnings, and that's this information right here in box 2. Those are the no courses for staff member and social security number not found in EPSB database. And then finally, when looking at your reports, you're going to review any of the individual teachers that are listed down here with certification issue. So you'll go on to the teachers listing on the next pages. And as I said, we'll take a little bit more look at that in just a moment as far as how to read those. So now you've looked at the report, you see what the errors are, and you're ready to correct issues. First thing you want to do, take those issues, go back to Infinite Campus, and make the corrections there. If they've got a special type that's missing, if they've got a content coded wrong, try and do those corrections in Infinite Campus first. And then you've made your corrections, you're ready to upload again. Go back to step 1, start it over and over and over and over. You can do final edits in our LEAD application, but if there is a correction that you have to make in Infinite Campus and you've already made edits on our website, those will be overwritten. So try to make sure that you don't even go to the Edit LEAD data page until you're all the way done. All of your staff warnings must be corrected in Infinite Campus. Those cannot be fixed on our website, so those have to be done in IC. Now, when you are ready to make edits on our website, this is what you're going to do. As I've already mentioned, I think the first 2 or 3 steps on this page, make your corrections in IC, regenerate the extract, don't move on. However, we do recommend that you kind of pick a date at which you're going to say, okay, I'm done with my uploads. I'm going to just do any final fixes on the website. Because Infinite Campus is a living, breathing web application. Changes are happening all the time. Students are moving in, things are happening. And so, you know, it's very feasible that you have a report almost all the way clean and a new kid moves in that they don't have the IEP information in for yet, and so it throws out new population errors. So, you know, at some point you're going to have to say, okay, I'm done uploading. We recommend around October 21st in the fall and around February 21st in the spring. Those are not hard, fast dates. There will be people still uploading from Infinite Campus on November 1st, and that's fine. It's whatever works best for you and your district's needs. Whatever you do, though, don't use that online edit lead data page until those staff warnings are fixed. Because any changes that you make on the editor will be lost if you upload a new file. This is what the edit lead data page looks like. It has a list of your schools. At the top, it will show your statistics as far as your Infinite Campus data is concerned. So in this case, this district has just 1 expired teacher. List of schools, if there are any problems related to courses, total number of course assignments, total number of staff. If you see blanks on the course assignments and staff, that indicates that a school has not been uploaded into the LEAD file. So you'll need to go back and re-upload getting all of your schools. You can click the edit link to review an entire school and then find the teacher's name in a drop-down. The easier way to get to an individual teacher's listing is to expand the school listing over here to the side using these arrows. And that's going to show you a list here, the last 4 of the social, the name, and the problem that the teacher has, whether they're expired, whether the content's wrong. It's going to tell you here what the issue is. You'll click View Details to get to their page. There's a variety of tabs once you get into their page. There will be a certification drop-down, so you can drop that down to open up and see their certificate information. You can look at their roles in our system to make sure that they have an appropriate role if they're a principal or something like that. You can view Munis data once it's been loaded from KDE. The default tab is the course data, because if you're making an edit, that's really what you're going to be looking at. You can view permissions using these tabs. And if there's been a last-minute change, say, you know, we've got a teacher that is been expired, and the superintendent's tried everything that they know how to do, and they finally said, sorry, we're going to have to let this person go. We've got somebody new in here now. We've already finished uploading our LEAD data. You go to reassign courses, enter the social of the new teacher, and it's going to swap all of those courses over to the right person. And then you'll need to make that change in Infinite Campus too. So once I've clicked on that course data tab, a little bit more information here, you can click Edit to open the individual's information on that individual course that needs to be edited. You can delete selected course lines of information. Let's say that there is, this has a listing of an alternative population, and that student is no longer there, really shouldn't have been there to begin with. They rostered him incorrectly and didn't catch it. You can delete that individual section line. Most of the time, that's not going to be something that you're going to want to do. You can also, if they forgot to add an FMD teacher as an additional teacher, you can add an additional teacher here. Use the checkbox, enter the Social Security number here, and click Add Courses to Selected Teacher. Now, I've clicked the Edit icon, and it opens up the information about this course. There are a variety of things that you can edit here. Again, most of this is stuff that needs to be edited in Infinite Campus. The grade range is something that cannot be edited in Infinite Campus, so you may need to edit that. Teaching method, let's say they accidentally set it up as a section instead of a separate course. So you can change the teaching method here. You can change the content or the population, although in most cases that's not going to be advisable. And you can put comments here. One of the comments that will commonly be made is if you have a middle school certified teacher teaching a 9th grade class at the high school, and there happen to be upper level students that are repeating that class, we consider that an allowable error. You'll just need to put a comment here letting us know that those are repeating students, and then we'll manually override it after sign-off. Once you've made any changes or comments, click Update. Be aware that when you click Update, it's not going to recalculate immediately. The error is still going to be there. So it's still going to show in the status until you go in and run your report. The Munis Data tab, you can put a comment in here. Most of the time that's not needed any longer. But that capability is there. Most of the time we'll use that here as we're doing our manual overrides. So once you've made all of your Edit Lead data corrections on that edit screen, go to the Reports button, not the Upload button. Do not upload again or you'll override all the changes you've made. Click the District Preliminary Audit Report so our computer will recalculate the changes, and then go back and make the changes in Infinite Campus because you want to make sure that your data aligns with each other as far as Infinite Campus to LEAD. So you've done all that, and now we're almost to November 1st, and you're ready to submit. Before you submit each semester, we strongly recommend, especially in the spring, that you have each school principal, or they can designate it to someone else if they wish, verify the full data report for their school. And that means they need to look for teachers that are showing with no courses, teachers with missing or incorrect schedules or content, teachers that are missing from the report completely, and if they've entered the HQ status, it'll pre-populate it for the HQ report so they can check that. When you sign off on your report, you are indicating that it is as accurate as it can be and you are done. Once you sign off, no changes can be made at the local level. Please be aware that if you sign off with errors on your report that you know are not things that we're going to manually override, it is likely that those errors will be reported to KDE. As I said, we will spend from November 1st to November 15th going through the reports, trying to take a look at them. Most of you all may or may not be aware that Mike Carr, our director from the Division of Certification, retired at the end of June. So we will hopefully, by the time LEAD reporting gets going, have a new director in place. But he is probably not going to be up to speed on LEAD enough that he's going to be able to help with the clearing process on this year. And so it's going to be one or two of us doing all 173 districts in a 15-day time span. So you want to make sure that it's as clean as possible before we get to it, because we're going to probably be able to make about one pass, and that's about it. The deadlines to sign off on the report are November 1st and February 28th. This is what the sign-off page looks like once you've made all of your corrections. You notice there's a nice little lawyer statement. I hereby affirm and declare that the information provided is true, accurate, and complete. It is an electronic signature, legal, digital electronic signature. Don't share your user ID and password with other people, folks. If you need someone else to have access to the LEAD system, we can set them up as a co-LEAD coordinator. That's fine. Just don't share that user ID and password when at all possible. So enter your user ID, your full name, and your password to sign off. And we'll get everything done and taken care of. So that's the steps to doing the LEAD process. Before I move on to looking at the LEAD reports and how to actually read the reports, are there any questions about the steps? The quick reference sheet will be the last 2 pages in your LEAD manual, and you'll have that, again, hopefully by the end of the week. All right, if there's no questions about the steps, we're now going to take a look at the reports We'll look briefly at the differences in those two types of reports, how to email the reports, and then we'll take a look at how to actually read them. You might want to have up your sample reports with you at this point, because we are going to take a look at those sample reports as we go through. They're not actually going to be completely referenced in the PowerPoint, but it is a good tool to have to look at. The difference in the two reports, the preliminary audit report is the one that you will use the most. This is what most people will refer to as their LEAD report. It's the preliminary audit report. You're going to run it after every upload. It is your tool to find your errors and correct them. It's going to tell you exactly what the problem is and give you clues as to how to go back and fix them. The full data report, you're going to run at least a couple of times a year just to have your principals verify it. We do recommend that you save a copy of this. I wouldn't print it out because these are usually hundreds and hundreds of pages. But I do recommend that you save a copy because Title I has been using these in their audits. So as your Title I, Title II audits are happening, they're referring back to their LEAD reports. So make sure that you're keeping a copy of this on file somewhere in your district. When you look at your reports, again, take a look at that file export date. If you look at your report and realize, hey, I thought I fixed that, check this date, because most often it means that you've picked up an old file when you've uploaded and not created a brand new file. And that's actually going to appear on both the preliminary and the full data reports. So looking at the full data report first, we're going to kind of go backwards a little bit because I want to spend more time on the preliminary since that's our main tool. The basic information from the full data report is the same as the preliminary audit report. The first few pages will be the same. But once you get into the school pages, it's going to list all of the staff members from your student information system. And when I say all staff members, I do mean everyone. We pull all employee types now for LEAD. That started in about 2006 when we realized that we were missing some folks that had been coded as support or other, either inadvertently or sometimes on purpose to hide them from the LEAD report. Unfortunately, that does happen. So we do pull everyone. So don't be surprised when you're looking at your full data report if you see your custodians and your cafeteria workers, if they're listed in Infinite Campus with a Social Security number and attached to a school, they're going to pull in the file. It will also include certification, munis, and course assignment data for all teaching staff. So any course that's in your Infinite Campus file for LEAD is going to show up on the full data report. It's going to show every course. You want to look on the sample report. A good example of this, there's a couple of things on pages 10 and then page 12 especially. Page 12, you'll notice there's a long, long list of courses. Most of them say cleared. Some of them have other error comments. When you see things that say cleared and then there's a note out to the side of it, for example, on page 12 in the sample report, it says cleared mainstream 2007-2008 waiver. That is a comment for us to know what rule was used to clear it if it isn't a regular certification clearing rule. So that just kind of is our tools to know how something cleared. This page here on the PowerPoint shows you an individual that's on page 10 of the sample report. You'll notice all of her credential information is here. Every certificate ever issued through our system is going to show up right here. Certificates that have expired, certificates that are current, history certificates, internship certificates, everything. The comments here for all of hers happen to be cleared. When you see 2 teachers like you do right here, that indicates that there's an additional teacher assigned to a course. Sometimes you'll see 4 and 5 teachers' names there, and that's okay. We use the full data report for a couple of different things. We use it to verify staff lists after the first upload each semester. We do recommend that you download it a couple of times a year to save. And then we recommend that you distribute it using the email tool so that the schools can verify the information. Especially in the spring, it is very important to make sure that they've looked at their data and verified it. If we get into highly qualified reporting and we realize that there are things that have to be corrected back in the LEAD data, we do have to reopen that LEAD file. And if we do that, and some of your schools have done HQ already, they're going to have to redo it. And we actually had that happen in 2 or 3 districts this last year. There were some major problems with some of their data. They didn't realize that some of their staff were missing and things like that. And they had to go back, reopen their LEAD report, make those corrections, and then their principals had to go back in and redo HQ. So we want to try to avoid that if at all possible. To email the reports to the schools so that they can check them, on the reports page, you're going to check mark the name of the report recipient. It's always going to be the principal listed here. No assistant principal is going to have access to this. No counselor is going to have access to this. If those are the individuals your principals want to review the report, they'll need to send them the report. So once they've check marked it here, if the wrong person's showing, the district will need to update that role in KeyScene. If the email is not correct, the individual will need to log in and correct their own email. Type a message into the box being very specific about what you want them to look for. What they're going to get when you click send message is a link to this page showing their school. So they're going to see their school name, preliminary, full, and they're not going to know what to click unless you tell them. So tell them what to click and what to look for. Make sure you identify yourself, because this is not going to come from your email address. It's going to come from a generic email address from our system. And you may need to make sure that your spam filters will allow that into the email. So make sure that your principals are aware that it's coming so they know it's a safe link to click on. Because in this day and age, we really don't want them clicking on things that we don't know are safe. The tool that I talked about, why we use the full data report early on, is the teacher list review. We want this to happen really early so that you've got everybody in LEAD that's supposed to be there. They're going to compare 2 different names, the EPSB name and the Student Information System name. If they're different individuals, there's a Social Security number problem somewhere. If the different last name, that just means they need to log in and update their name in our database. And you want to make sure that the staff are listed in both columns, and I'll show you why in just a second. This is a sample. This is from the sample report that you have. It's on page 9. But what you're going to look for is comparing the EPSB name, which is this column right here, to the Student Information System name over here. First of all, if they're different last names, again, not a problem. For us, the certification we pull off of the social, not the last name. So, but it can be confusing to your principals when it comes time for highly qualified if they've never known that person under their other name. So just have them update that in our system. Down here is the more serious error. You can see they're 2 totally different people. And so there's a Social Security number issue somewhere. Usually it's been a typo in Infinite Campus. Check it against outside documentation. Go to payroll, go to their application, check something else other than IC to see what the real Social Security number should be. Looking for teachers that do not have Student Information System data, and that's this blue box right here. You'll notice there's a Social Security number here. There's an EPSB name here. There's no teacher number, no employee type, and no Student Information System name. What that tells me is that these individuals are in your LEAD file from Munis only. There is absolutely no data on this individual at this school in Infinite Campus whatsoever that came through in the file. The key word is came through in the file. This is where we ran into some problems last year. The principals actually had done a staff list review, but all they'd looked at was this list. Said, yep, all my folks are there. They didn't look to see that this was missing, and they didn't look at the courses to see that these individuals had no courses. What had happened was somewhere along the way, some folks had gotten entered without Social Security numbers, and if there's no social in IC, it's not going to load into our system. And so you want to make sure that they're looking for both pieces of data here. Now, there will be some people that will have a student information system name and no EPSB name, and that's okay. It's the flip side that's the bigger problem. Now looking at the preliminary audit report and how to actually resolve any lead issues using this report. The purpose for the preliminary audit report is to show your basic summary information and any staff members that have kicked out. Or some people say, had somebody say the other day, will it fall out on the report or will it cause a lead problem? All of those mean the same thing. It's an error. And so anything that kicks out is going to show just on your preliminary audit report. And again, remember that those kickouts do need to be resolved by November 1st. Looking at the preliminary audit report, this information is on the sample report that you have. The file summary information is exactly that. It's a summary of the data that's in the file. Shows your district, the school year, the total number of staff members, courses, and content areas. It says if someone is marked as somebody asked a question, if someone is marked as a teacher from SIS but has no EPSB data, what might be wrong? If they are marked as a teacher from the SIS but has no EPSB data, there are a couple things that could be happening. It could be a missing social in Infinite Campus that caused them to not export into the extract file. Occasionally we've had some other hiccups with some of the courses not pulling through for a variety of reasons. It's something that really just has to be troubleshot, I guess is the right way to say that in the past tense. You need to troubleshoot it on a case-by-case basis. It's really hard to determine kind of generically what could be wrong that could cause that. It's something that we would need to look at each individual teacher to see what the problem is. Now, if you're talking about why their name shows in the SIS column but not in the EPSB column, that usually just means that they don't have any courses or they're just assigned as an additional teacher, and that's okay. All right, back on to this box. Box C is your list of schools, the school code, the grade range. If you have any new schools this year or have reconfigured any grade ranges, make sure that you check this carefully. We sync this data with KDE, and sometimes we forget to sync it as often as we should. So you'll want to make sure that we've got the most correct information. And then the comments box here will show the number of staff, the number of courses, and then the number of certification issues. And in this case, that refers to issues related to courses and the number of Munis issues. You will see in red on this page if there are no courses or no staff for a particular location. That's a good red flag that you have not uploaded a specific school. Moving on to the next page in the report is a school page. So you want to take a look on the school page at the following things, looking for the staff warnings, the no courses for staff member, Social Security number not found in EPSB database. Then under number 2 down here, example D on your sample report, as if it says certification issue. On this page, certification issue can mean that it's a course-related issue or a Munis-related issue. Don't panic if you see the phrase certification issue. Probably 95% of the time, it does not mean that there's a problem with the teacher's actual certificates. You have to go to the next page, the individual's page, to see what the actual problem is. If there are no errors for a particular school, this list will not appear. So obviously we want your schools to start dropping off your lead report as fast as possible. The staff warnings, the no courses for staff member, first we'll talk about that one. To kind of troubleshoot those, check the schedule to make sure that they have been assigned to courses and that the courses are active and within the instructional minutes. This has been a problem for elementary schools in the past for special ed teachers because so often some of the courses were scheduled outside the instructional minutes. With the new data standards this year requiring that all courses be in those instructional minutes, that should take care of some of this. If they're a collaborating special ed teacher, they do have to be assigned as an additional teacher on the courses where they are collaborating. You cannot just leave them with no courses. If they are a teacher but don't usually have their own group of students, such as a gifted teacher, reading recovery teacher, you can assign them a course in the schedule. If they are assigned a course and are providing direct instruction, that means they're providing the direct instruction, they do need to have students rostered to them now with the professional growth and evaluation system. You can also, if they are just serving as a collaborating teacher, you can assign them as an additional teacher, either under the teacher or staff drop down on the staff history tab, and just link them to the courses from which they pull their students. Again, do not change the employee type to support or other. Your art, music, and PE teachers, even at the elementary level, do have to have courses. And this year, those do have to be linked to students. So you can't just create one course and put no students on it. They do need to be linked to students. If you've checked all that, they've got schedules, make sure that they have a valid Social Security number, a valid district assignment and district employment, that the district assignment tab, if they have multiple roles, such as SITS roles, that they all have an employee type. It is an acceptable error if the teacher started the school year at a location and is now no longer there. Sometimes folks will transfer schools, they'll resign, they'll retire, whatever. If they started the school year there and then have been inundated in Infinite Campus, they're still going to pull because they were active at some point during the school year, and that's okay. Just send me an email saying, you know, these folks are showing with no courses errors because they left as of XYZ date. Do not leave the no courses error as an error if you can't figure it out. Get in touch with your folks at Infinite Campus. Have your folks file a support ticket with Infinite Campus. They can help troubleshoot it as well if you are not able to figure out what the problem is. Sometimes that does have to happen if we can't figure it out. Sometimes it's not an obvious answer, and they've really had to dig into it and find it. And so you use that resource if you can't find the error. Don't just leave it and say, well, they've got courses in Infinite Campus. We don't know why they're coming in. Make sure that you work with Infinite Campus to get those courses onto the extract file. Social Security number not found in EPSB database usually means there's a typo somewhere, either on your all's end or on our end. So check the social against outside documentation, as I said. If it's not accurate, correct it in IC. If it is accurate, contact me, let us know. We'll make sure that we have a social in the system for them, and if we do, that it's the right social. Because on both ends, we've got human beings that are putting this data in, and we do make typos from time to time. Something that throws people a little bit is that if the individual is a support person, and it's saying SSN not found in EPSB database on the preliminary audit report, if it's saying that on the preliminary audit report, they are linked as an additional teacher on one or more courses, so we do need to get their social in the system so that course will load correctly. Check the social, make sure it's correct, and then you can do one of two things. Email me and just say the Social Security number found on the report is correct, or call me. Whatever you do, do not put a full social in an email. We are trying at all costs to avoid that, folks. If you need to use the last four, that's fine. As I said, if it's correct, just email me and say the social in IC is correct. Then I can look at the file and I can load it into our database that way. But don't put that full social in an email. Call me if you need to. It's important to note that those staff warnings are people that are not getting checked for certification issues because we have no data by which to check them. We don't have any courses. If we don't have the social, we can't even load their courses. So those have to be corrected for us to check those folks to make sure that they have the appropriate certification. That's why we recommend that those are checked early. In your LEAD manual, there's going to be a pacing target guideline for dates as far as helping you keep on track. This is a pretty early pacing target of getting those staff warnings resolved. You want to get those done fast, first and early. Don't put them off to the end because, as I said, they're not being checked for certification issues. And sometimes with a no courses error, it does take a support ticket, and a last-minute support ticket is not going to have time to get resolved. So make sure that you do those early. All right, so we've looked at the staff warnings. We know how to fix those. Now we're on to that certification issue. And so we're going to turn to the teacher's page and see what we've got. This page, just like on the full data report, is going to show certification information. It will show MUNIS data if there is an error related to MUNIS. And it will show course assignment data for only those courses that have errors. If they have other courses that have cleared, they're not going to show up on here. So only the courses that have errors are going to show. There are some samples on page 5 and 7 in your sample LEAD report. This is one of those examples. This person has an expired certificate and has nothing else, so they have an error on both MUNIS and course information. The MUNIS box appears right under their credential information. The comment is always going to say insufficient certification. That's the only error comment our system will give for a MUNIS-related job class error. Then you have course information. Again, only the courses that are errors will show. If they are expired or do not have a valid certificate of any type, there will be a listing for every population in a particular section. So you may have only 6 sections, but you may have 30 listings because there's 5 different populations in each section. So all of those are going to just say expired or whatever the comment is. This is the box that you're going to use to find out what your error is. When looking across this box, what you see, your internal district course number, the KDE number, which is the 6-digit state course code, the description, that's your district's internal course name. The content comes from the state course code. Only way to change it is the state course code. Population comes from the students on the roster, as does the grade range. And then again, the comments tells you what the problem is. So now we're going to look at each of the comments that you are likely to see on the report, talk about what they are and how to go about correcting them. Certification issue just means there's an error. You'll need to look at the individual's page. Most of the time they're miscodes. Not always, but most of the time. If you see the error comment holds only SOE or must submit COE, that indicates that the only valid credential that an individual has is a statement of eligibility. Statement of eligibility actually is not a credential. It's literally just that. It's a statement saying that they are eligible for a teaching credential. So they may need to be entered into KTIP. So your KTIP coordinator will need to file the COE. If they finish the KTIP, everything else is expired and something else needs to be done to get them certified. Some sub-comments that you will see under that holds only SOE are KTIP approved and KTIP final. KTIP approved can mean that the district has not yet submitted the final report for an individual that was in KTIP last year. Or it may mean, and this is more common especially in mid-September when we're running the LEAD report, that the individual has been approved to enter KTIP, but we've not yet processed it either because we're waiting for a teacher educator assignment or because it's a certificate that doesn't automatically process because it's an older one. If you see the KTIP approved comment on your report for more than 2 weeks, let me know, because we may need to take a look at what's going on here and see what's happening. KTIP final just means that they have finished their KTIP We have the final report on file, but we're waiting for something to process that certificate. It may, in most cases, be that we need the fee to process their professional certificate, and that's all. If they were an alt-cert teacher, we'll need some additional paperwork. Specify content as an error on your LEAD report means that the content is currently displaying as none. You may need to assign or reassign a state course code on the course tab. If you have a valid state course number in there, but it is no longer in use, the content will say none. Every year we remove a few and add a few, and that change document is up on KDE's website. If the state code is 909999, which is school-defined course, they'll need to assign a content for each section on the section tab. Otherwise, that section tab drop-down is going to be ignored completely, so they don't need to waste their time adding things on there unless that's the state code. There's a couple of other oddball ones throughout some of the industrial arts courses and a few elementary codes that will allow it, but most cases that's not going to be usable. Specify population means that the population is displaying as none because there are no active students on the roster of the course. It does also cause the grade range to default to that of the school. To fix it, you can either assign students to the course, if it's a course that's just been created, or you will need to assign a population on the section tab. And this throws people a little bit when it's a course that was in use but no longer is. If the course was active at any point during the term and had students on it, you can't delete it because there's grades and attendance attached to that. So what you will need to do is put a population on the section tab telling me who was in the course when it was active. You can't leave it as none and just try to explain it and say, no students, everybody's withdrawn. I need to know who was in it when it was active so we can make sure that the teachers were teaching the appropriate group of students at that time. Out of field indicates that the content for the course does not match the teacher's certification. You can check the state course code, make sure that is correct for the course. Again, the state course code really actually needs to be based on what the course is, not what the teacher certification is. So if the course code's correct, we might have another issue here. You can check the section tab to see if there's any incorrect content there. What I don't have on this screen is then you ask your principal or your guidance counselor, why did you schedule this person in a course for which they hold no certification? Principals do have access to check the permissions tool, so there really should not be cases where they can say, I don't know, I didn't know that they couldn't teach that. They have access to check it and can use the tools at their disposal. So out of field is one that can be a little tricky to resolve just because they may really be out of field, maybe teaching something for which they have no certification. Out of population means that one or more of the populations of the students do not match the certification of the teacher. Populations come in from the students on the roster. Changing the population on that drop-down, if there are active students on the roster, will not change anything in your LEAD report. Now, FMD students that are mainstreamed into a general ed classroom, we do require that there's a collaborating FMD teacher listed in Infinite Campus. They don't have to physically be in the classroom, but we do ask that they be linked so we know who is supporting those students. If you're seeing a general population, check the roster of students to make sure that they're active, have locked IEPs, they don't have overlapping IEPs. We've done a little bit of work with Infinite Campus this year to try and clean this up a little bit. We've had some errors in the last year or so as this has evolved. And so we've taken a look at that, and hopefully that will be a little bit cleaner this year. You may need to change the special type on the section tab. There's several different things on the section tab that indicate special type. If it is a special ed classroom, if it's an alternative classroom, if it's an ESL classroom or a gifted classroom or speech therapy. The reason we have this for special ed classes especially is to do with students that are dual identified. So you might have a student that is identified as both gifted and special ed. Gifted in one thing, needing assistance in another area. If you use the special type drop-down to tell us what type of classroom they are in, that will let us know which population to look at and which population to say they're getting that resource served elsewhere. Out of grade range is one that is not really able to be fixed in most cases because the grade range comes actually from the students that are enrolled in the section. The one exception to that is if there are no students on the roster, it defaults to the grade range of the school. There's no way to edit the grade range on a particular course if in Infinite Campus. So if it's defaulted to the grade range of the school, then you can edit the grade range on our website. A great example are folks that work with like a math group, math coach, or a reading recovery teacher where they don't have students on the roster of the section. The school happens to be a preschool through 6th grade school, but they're only working with K through 3 students. You can go in and edit that grade range. Otherwise, you may need to check and make sure that students are appropriately enrolled in the class. You know, at the high school level, if you have middle school certified teachers, the only way that they can serve upper level students in most cases is if those are repeating students. And so make sure your schools are aware of that when they're scheduling, that they're not just throwing a hodgepodge of kids in a middle school certified teacher's classroom. Incorrectly coded is an error comment that will only show up on the Edit Lead data page. If you see that, take a look at your actual preliminary audit report to see what the real problem is. It just means that you've either got a content of none or a population of none or both. Insufficient certification, when you see that on a course listing, it means that probably there are more than one error. There's more than one error going on. Our LEAD system is not able to identify the specific problem. Occasionally, it's only one error, but our system is a little confused about what that error might be. So that's where we as the human beings have to kind of put on our Sherlock Holmes hats and troubleshoot it ourselves. If you see insufficient certification as it relates to a MUNIS error, that means the teacher or administrator cannot clear the job class to which they've been assigned in the PSD file with their current certification. Sometimes we need to get additional certification for the teacher or this administrator. Sometimes we need to get the job class changed because they've not been placed in the right job class either through error or through a typo or something like that. Again, if there's a job class change that needs to happen, your finance director will need to resubmit the PSD file to KDE. I know that's a lot of information. We've still got another PowerPoint to take a look at here in a minute, but I want to stop here and give you a little bit of information about where you can find some help. There's the address again for the LEAD web application. This presentation and the LEAD manual, hopefully by Friday, will be posted up on our website at www.epsb.ky.gov. And if you go to the certification link, and then there's a LEAD link. Resources that will be available there both in the full LEAD manual and as individual documents include the content tree, populations list, the MUNIS certification reference chart. There will be links to the LEAD application and to KISI. The PowerPoints from today, the PowerPoint that I'm going over with the experienced coordinators. Again, that's something I would recommend that at some point you all take a look at the experienced coordinators PowerPoint. There's some good information in there for you. It's just something that until you kind of get your hands into LEAD may not make a lot of sense. So all of that's going to be on the website. If you have any questions or your principals have any questions about highly qualified, we have a lot of great documents, guidance documents on our website under nclb.asp. LEAD support and guidance, contact information. There's our toll-free number. To get to me during LEAD season, if you dial that toll-free number, dial 1 and 3. That will get you straight to me so you don't have to go through our operator and wade through waiting in line there. I'm going to put in the chat box over here my direct number. because I do have a direct line straight into me, which is 502-782-2133. If you need assistance with your login, user ID, or password, again, that same toll-free number, and just press 0 for our help desk. The Division of Certification, our 5 ladies are working diligently right now to get as many certifications in and out of here as possible. Currently, we are only about a 2 to 3 day backlog, which is incredible for this time of year, and our folks do a great job. But there's that toll-free number. To get straight to the Division of Certification from that number, dial 1 and then 1. Please be aware that during the summer we only have 2 of our 5 consultants on the phones at any time, so you may have to wait a little bit to get an answer if you're calling them. HQ questions, contact the HQ team, same number, dial 13 to get to me. EPSBHQ@ky.gov is the email address. That's going to go to me. That will go to our new director as well, so one of us will be able to answer that. EPSB LEAD team, we do recommend using that email address when possible, especially if it's related to an upload error, because that will go to me, that will go to our director, and that will go to the our tech division as well. Any questions about this part of the presentation at all, folks? You're welcome to type them in the chat. You're welcome to email me directly. We are going to be going to another PowerPoint here in just a second. That's a relatively short PowerPoint, just showing you where information is pulled from NIC. So I'll go on and start bringing that up. And as I said, if you have any questions at all, feel free to type those in. Let me pull this up here. It's like somebody's typing. So we'll hold off starting this up until we get that question. This presentation is being recorded today, so I will be archiving that and getting that posted hopefully soon, if you need to go back and refer to it at any time. Okay, someone says, thought I had my elementary schedule set up, but apparently I don't because I have the course error. I'm not sure what course error you're referring to because we've not yet uploaded. What course error are you seeing on that? Teachers not assigned to courses. Is that on the extract? I'm assuming that's on the extract summary page. Make sure that when you're running that, that you're looking at the current school year. That and the time frame that you're running it. Have you all started school yet, Becky? Okay, so you should be able to run it in the current school year. I'll need to double check with KDE to make sure that we've got LEAD set up to run for this new school year. Sometimes that has to be switched over a little bit, but I'd need to take a look at it. If you'll give me a call this afternoon, I'll try and look at it offline with you, and we'll take a look and see, because I can see some of the information in State Edition and may be able to help you walk through some of that. So give me a call this afternoon, and we'll take a look at that individually. I know the elementary schedule changes this year are getting a bit weird as far as some of the things that we're looking at, so we'll need to make sure we'll look at that. But I'll chat with you offline once we get done. All right, any other questions? Without any others, I don't see anybody else's typing right now. So real quick glance at where we get the elements for LEAD. We pull there's two different sub-files within the LEAD file. There's a staff file and a course data file. And some of that information crosses over, but we get elements from staff data and course data. The staff data comes from the demographics and identities tabs, as well as the district employment tab and the district assignment tab. The course data comes from the course master, stepping down a level to the course tab, stepping down another level to the section tab, and then some of the information does come all the way down from the student enrollment information. Please be aware that we cannot see student-specific information in LEAD. What we get is a conglomeration of the information from a particular class. So it's just kind of an overview. If there's one student with an FMD population and 5 students with general and 3 students that are marked as speech impaired, what we will see is general, FMD, and speech impaired for that class. We have no way to know how many students or who those students are. And at the standards board, we really don't want to know, because what we're focused on is making sure that the teacher is appropriate to who they're teaching, not the individual students. The demographics tab, each person should only have 1 entry in the census data. The Social Security number is required for LEAD purposes. I know we've also been putting the EPSB ID number in Infinite Campus for SITS purposes, but we are not pulling that right now for LEAD. We are pulling the Social Security number because that's the only 100% sure way we have to match somebody up in our database. It does have to be unique to each individual. You want to make sure that the social on the demographics matches the social in the identities tab. We had an issue with that a few years ago. I don't think it's a problem anymore. Teacher staff numbers down there under the person identifiers, that field can be numbers only. We don't accept letters or dashes or any kind of punctuation in that. And it is required, in my understanding, to make a person staff to give them that little briefcase by their head. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but using the staff locator when adding a new person, it helps us avoid data quality issues so we don't have duplicated individuals. The other thing that it is doing is helping us have that staff, that assignment history, that district assignment history at the state level, so that we can see this person was in District A for a while, in District B, and now has moved to District C. As we start working through the professional growth and evaluation system, that's going to be something that will be looked at, I'm sure. So you want to make sure, and it saves time on your all's folks in because they don't have to enter as much information. It will pull that person over and we won't end up with a duplicate. All right, the identities tab. Again, make sure folks are using the identities tab to change up information as far as last names instead of creating a new entry in the census data. And again, make sure the identities tab socials match. Again, that I don't think is a problem anymore. It was a little while back, but I don't think it is anymore. The district employment tab, all staff must have an active district employment. If a person is listed as an additional teacher on a course or as the primary teacher on a course, they must have an active employment even if they're not a district employee. So this is important when you're thinking about vocational teachers. If you have them in your Infinite Campus system, even if they're not your employee, they have to have that district employment tab. The district assignment tab, they must have an active district assignment in order to be listed on a section. The employee type is required for individuals that are linked with courses, so you want to make sure that this employee type is filled in. We've talked about it already, but I'll say it again. All teaching staff must have an employee type of O1 teacher, and that includes your related arts teachers, your music teachers, PE, your special ed teachers. They're teachers. Support is used for classified individuals, things like that. The exceptions to that are O5 speech therapist and O6 librarian. Those are allowed to be used so that we don't look for courses necessarily on them. If the individual does have a SITS role and they're a teacher or an administrator that may be linked to courses, make sure that their employee type on their SITS role matches their regular employee type. If they're a district employee that's not going to ever be linked to courses and has a SITS role at a school, it's okay for them to not have an employee type. KDE has developed some ad hoc reports to help identify staff members that have some problems like duplicate SSNs, things like that, missing socials. Those are going to be in your LEAD manual. I don't think KDE has put those in as state published reports. They may have by now, but that's going to be something for your folks to add in. All right, so that's the staff data, the course data, starting at the highest level, which is the course master. We do recommend the use of a course master, if at all possible, as a district course catalog, just because it helps standardize things across your district. You don't have to, but we do recommend it. All courses must have that valid 6-digit state course code. It is used to assign the content. There is a lookup function that is available when you start typing in either the title of a course or the number of a course. It will pull up any course that has that in it. So if you know that all science courses start with 30, you start typing 30, it's going to bring up any course that has a 30 in its state course code number. And so it will help you kind of find that. When entering your district course name, please don't use any punctuation other than maybe an and. I think it'll allow periods, but we've gotten into where our system really doesn't like apostrophes when it comes time to do some edit things. So try to avoid that if at all possible. Make sure that the state code is locked down so that you're only editing at the course master level and not on the course tab if you're using a course master. The course tab, the course name, number, and state code will come in from the course master, so that's going to pull in automatically. The type, there's a type of virtual or performance here. The virtual indicator should only be used for courses that do not have seat time in your school. If it's a course where your students are sitting in your school using some sort of online program, don't use this type of virtual. And Garnetta Barnett did a presentation at the Infinite Campus beginning of the year training about this, so make sure you take a look at her guidance on that. The teaching method defaults to direct instruction. The teaching method drop-down is what you're going to use when you indicate alternate teaching methods, such as digital learning provider. We're now also using the teaching method to indicate courses that are credit recovery, that are dual credit. If your district participates in the NAF academies, we're using this teaching method here. So make sure that you set that up correctly. Notice that this is on the course tab. So if you have the same course with different teaching methods, you're going to have to set up a different course number. So you might have course number 2700, that's Algebra 1, and then 2700 DL, that's Algebra 1 through a digital learning provider, and 2700 CR, that's an Algebra 1 credit recovery class. So those are going to need to be set up at the course level. Instructional setting default is on-site classroom. This is where you're going to tell us if students are going off-site to college, off-site vocational, homebound. There is an online indicator here. Again, that ties back to the virtual. Make sure that that indicator is set for virtual classes only, meaning there's no seat time on location. Stepping down another level is the section tab. Each section number should be distinct within a school, not just within a calendar. So if you have a 9th grade calendar and a 10th through 12th grade calendar and students are sharing the same class, you're going to need to set those up with distinct section numbers so it will pull in appropriately. The section schedule placement down at the bottom of that screen. All courses that will show up in LEAD must be scheduled within an instructional period. Now that the elementary scheduling standards require all courses for elementary be in that instructional period, that should help with this already, but make sure that they're within that instructional period for us to see them for LEAD. You can populate the HQ status here on this section tab based on the teachers related to this particular course. It's either going to be highly qualified, not highly qualified, or HQ not applicable. Make sure when your schools are giving the schedule information to whomever is actually doing the scheduling physically, which is usually an attendance clerk or somebody like that, make sure that they tell them what HQ status should be marked, because folks outside of education don't necessarily understand what HQ is and what that requirement is and how it all works. So they just think, okay, they've got a certificate, they're highly qualified, which may or may not be the case. The primary teacher, the teachers, and the section staff come in from the staff history tab. The primary teacher is the teacher of record. The teachers' information are secondary or collaborative staff that have access to gradebook and attendance. And then the section staff is usually used for LEAD purposes only, and that does not have gradebook and attendance. For LEAD, we see them exactly the same. It's just a difference in Infinite Campus as far as what level of access they have. I do want to say one other thing, though, about that primary teacher and secondary teacher. Actually, I'll talk about that on the staff history tab in just a second. Sorry. The special type is also here on the section tab. It identifies courses that are designed for special groups of students. The default is none. It's not a special type of classroom at all. Alternative classroom, the guidance on this has changed a little bit this year. In the past, we only used that for programs that were within a school that were not separate schools. New guidance from KDE is asking that all alternative classroom courses be identified with this special type, even if it's in an alternative school, so make sure that your schools are aware of that. It does help us clear things for LEAD purposes as well, but again, this is another thing that the usage that has expanded a little bit. Population drop-down, core content drop-down, again, most of the times your schools aren't even going to have to deal with these because most of the times they just need to be left blank. Now on the staff history tab. Primary teacher, based on the teacher of record definitions, the primary teacher is the certified teacher who has been assigned the lead responsibility for the student's learning. So that's the person that's actually providing the direct content instruction. They don't have to have a start date, and we ran into some questions last year. Okay, I'm trying to schedule somebody in for a second semester class, and it won't let me. Just don't put a start date there. They'll become active on that class when that class becomes active. So the start date will be driven by the class, not by the teacher. The teachers and the section staff are both individuals who have been assigned responsibility for providing additional services for supporting and increasing learning. Again, the difference has to do with gradebook and attendance. The other difference has to do with who do you want to see this class in SITs. Right now, there is only one additional person being pulled for SITs. It's going to start by pulling from the teacher drop-down first, and then it will look at the section staff if there's no one in the teacher drop-down. This is important, especially at the primary level, if you have teacher's aides that you want to be able to take gradebook and attendance. Because if they are listed under teacher and your collaborating special ed teachers listed under section staff, the teacher's aide is going to be the one that pulls into SITs, not the section staff. So something to think about as you set those up and as you decide who's going to have what level of access is that only one person pulls into SITs, and it pulls from the teacher drop-down first, and then the section staff drop-down. And then finally, the final piece of the course data is the student information. The grade range comes from students in the class. If there are no students on the roster, the grade range defaults to that of the school. And then we also get population elements from the student enrollment information. Gifted, LEP, special ed. For a population to show up in LEAD, there does have to be a start date and no end date. There are a variety of things that go into each of those populations and how you put them in. I'm not going to get into those here because you've got program area contacts that can help you with those. So that's it for the LEAD data elements. That wraps us up today. Looks like I got you done about 20 minutes early today. Again, I'll be sending a survey out here in just a little bit. It's just an email, so just type in your answers and email that back to me. And then I'll be sending ELA certificates probably by the end of the week once I get those back. Thank you all very much for joining me. Hope this has been beneficial, and contact me as you have any questions at all. Again, my direct line, 502-782-2133. Look forward to talking with you and working with you this year. Thanks.